Welcome, everyone, to another edition of the Tony Sirianni podcast. I am very happy to have my friend Ritik Malhotra here with us today. He is the founder and CEO of Savvy Wealth. Thanks for being here, Ritik. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Tony. I'm excited for this.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's a lot going on, and you being a tech forward firm, I think we have to kind of you know, elephant in the room time with the AI, right? Did we have a conversation around that? It's always good to talk to you about this kind of thing. So just from your perspective, which I think is interesting, maybe give just a little background prior to sort of telling us, what you think, just so people know, where this is coming from. But I'd love to hear your take on where you think AI is going to bring our business. And we can go back and forth on that too.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the premise of AI this time around, right, when they were specifically talking about generative AI, these large language models, is particularly uh, in written or any sort of content creation, but then also in terms of reasoning, it's gotten quite good. And so the way that we've always thought about this is that, well, if that's the case, then there's the key element in the industry, the key person, the advisor is doing a lot of that. They're generating a lot of content. They're
Yeah.
explaining a lot of things. They're reasoning things out, and they're parsing a lot of information that's in the call it the financial world, the regulations, et cetera, in order to distill it down for the client. So this is actually a tool that helps the advisor a ton because it basically speeds up all of those processes in a way that was never possible before. And after being very incremental, this really feels like a step function change for them.
Yeah, and just again to repeat on your background, I mean, you're a high school graduate, right? And so you know this business pretty well. So why don't you tell people a little bit about your background so they know where this is coming from?
Sure. So, my background, graduated. I did graduate high school back in
Nice,
California.
there we go.
Uh, I went to study computer science at Berkeley in California as well. Ended up dropping out of school, and since then started two companies. First one was a cloud storage company that we sold to Box right before they went public, and the second one was actually a corporate fintech. So it's a corporate treasury management and corporate banking startup that we sold to Brex, who just recently got acquired by
Yeah,
Capital One.
yeah. So
And
you've been in this space, and you're we're talking about something that you at least understand probably a little more than me. But I will say that the models, there's you'll see a bunch of articles now written about how there was that initial thing uh, that sort of set everybody on a wild ride, right? That hey, this is a possible kind of worst case scenario for what might happen. And then today you did see some people, there were some layoffs and they're sort of saying that they're related to, AI. You can understand that. But, Ron Kruszewski, you and I talked about this too, wrote in this article about how, the markets are not like chess, where chess is eminently knowable. There's only so many moves. There's a board, right? So some sort of intelligence, outside intelligence could understand it. When markets, you start to get emotions and rules and regulations and politics and all these different things involved. It just seems like maybe there's more of an opportunity for people to influence than not.
it's a fair point. It's a fair point. I think the unknowable part about the market is what you're effectively seeing here, right? Because the guessing game in how the AI has affected the markets, right? With these sharp drops that you wouldn't normally expect because it isn't correlated to some actual tangible improvement in technology that happened overnight, or isn't actually correlated to some actual revenues floating away from one of these legacy institutions to one of the more modern AI ones. Right? And really, what it is because it's an unknowable game. The next best thing is effectively you're adjusting your expected value, right? This 10-year discounted cash flow that you're doing, you're basically saying, well, hold on a second. Everything still seems fine. I have no reason to believe that these legacy institutions, the Schwabs of the world, et cetera, are going anywhere.
Yeah.
However, it's basically this binary risk you've added in. You've now added in this maybe 1% chance something goes really, really, really the other way because
Yeah.
you just don't know what AI will transpire to be in that 10-year period. And effectively, that is a seismic shift from just from a stock price because of that expected value drop.
Yeah, but people who really, know the business, I mean, at some point you want, a personal touch involved in if you've got $5 million to put in with
Of
you
course.
can run all the AI models you want. You still want to talk to a person to have it explained to you, or someone, who at least has a level of expertise and experience in it, right? I mean, that seems to be the end of the day sort of scenario.
It's spot on, and I know Tony, you and I talked about this a little bit too. But basically, the idea that there's a value in first off bedside manner. There's a huge value even even before AI. You'll take another couple of industries, even wealth management. You could look things up. You could do it yourself, whether it
Sure.
was WebMD to do things instead of going to the doctor, right? But you'll still go to the doctor because you're worried about something. Same with finances. If you have enough, you actually are worried that you might do something wrong, even if you are asking AI to do something, right? Maybe it's
And
hallucinating.
even
Maybe it
there,
doesn't do that.
and AI is also, look, it's a consensus opinion type of model too, right? So it's not coming up with anything new, but it also has hallucinations based on the way it's, done. So if people when you're dealing with somebody's money, you want certainty. So you feel like software is not going to go out of business because you need, and what you guys do too, you need service, right? There has to be something along with just, yeah, I can go in the marketplace, as you said, and do it myself. I can make my own travel arrangements too, but oftentimes you want to use somebody to help you.
100%. 100%. That's exactly it. It's a
Yeah.
certainty and it's actually mitigating the fear. Because even if
Yes.
you are the smartest person when it comes to finances, or you think you are, there's still an element of fear. And actually, there's a lot of human psychology studies and books that I've read, and it's pretty obvious when you kind of read it, where having someone else make the decisions and actually be that verifier is a normal thing. Human evolution has basically trained us that when we're making decisions for ourselves, especially when it comes to finances or health or these major things that can really affect your life, your brain will immediately go to the worst case scenario. So fear will suddenly start to drive the decision, where someone else might be much more objective because they're not subject to that same kind of pull, which is a really big value that
Yeah.
just AI is not going to solve.
Yeah, and I know you're using it today, right, to an extent. So tell me a little bit about where do you see that it's genuinely adding value? I think advisors are figuring out that it's more of a tool than a threat, but it's also a tool that could change the way they do things. I mean, you and I think we chatted about this too. I mean, you could see where advisors could, now manage $1 billion in a way that they could have managed 100 million before because of, sort of efficiencies and things like that.
It's funny. I have a few bets out with some of the advisors on our platform already, where I believe that in the next 3 years you'll start to see the rise of the $1 billion solo advisor, purely
Yeah.
because they get so much leverage out of AI as a tool. So maybe a couple kind of just quick hitting examples on where we've seen it. So first off, the easiest one was actually in the middle and back office. So even
Sure.
about 2 years ago, we just started to effectively see much faster improvements in processing documents. Is like the easiest example. You don't need someone to go, and if someone's only going to accept this fax that you need to print something out, well, at least the transposition of data from a database to the document can be done with AI with far better accuracy than anyone else. That was an easy one we saw. Second one that we've seen as well is that, thinking of the data that you have as an advisor. I mean, it's a ton of stuff, right? The CRM has an insane
Yeah.
amount of information. You have all the securities, holdings, historical trades, transactions, and then of course now AI notes and so on. And so basically, we're finding good value in effectively creating, call it the transforming that data to be AI friendly, such that now they can ask questions on any historical context that they need. And actually, the AI is good at reasoning out what they should maybe think about next based on what the data already has, right? So that's an interesting one where it's kind of
And
becomes the
also, but
stop
like
partner.
the doctor though, you really want you got to take a look at it, before when
Oh
it
yeah.
comes back to you. You want that doctor slash advisor to be there saying, "Hey, let me just look at these results a little bit."
That's exactly it, right? This is a tool for the advisor because it's basically speeding up what the advisor would have done. Is, hey, they would have gone, well, what did I talk about 1 year ago? What was that thing that they said about their, son and daughter 6 months ago? So I can think about what we need to do here, and that effectively is sped up instead of sifting through notes, which maybe were in a binder before or on pen and paper. AI can just produce that answer, right? It's the fastest question answer bot that you can get as an advisor.
Yeah. Look, the other piece of it is not just I think of the back office piece. I think of like compliance, and there's such a headache for advisors all the time, and it takes so long because somebody has to sift through all this marketing material. And a lot of the answers now, you still need somebody again, the compliance officer, to mark it off, but that ought to have real application there as well. Make things happen quicker. Marketing materials, just anything for client looks.
We've seen a lot. Yeah, we definitely see that too. So I mean, first up was the marketing material generation. We were able
Yeah.
to do that a lot faster, and you can personalize it a lot quicker for both the advisor and the client, right? So that was a huge speed up. We saw that started to see that about 2 years ago. Compliance is another one as well, because now for a broad base of claims, excuse me, scenarios, you can actually have AI actually do some discernment, which speeds up the actual compliance review. We're not at the point that you can fully replace the actual compliance review. I mean, it's too risky of a thing to
Yeah.
do, but effectively you can speed it up by 80%. Well, hey, that's value, right? You don't have to wait weeks to get something out.
Some of this is going to be, we talked a little bit in the very beginning about, the market's not a chessboard, but our business isn't really a chessboard either. It's, subject to regulation and the politics and all this other stuff. So when you look when I look at AI and think of Elizabeth Warren sitting on a council, I could see her saying, hey, you know what? You didn't run this 401k investment through AI, so you're not going to get a commission. I can also see you saying you did run it through AI. Why do you deserve a commission? I mean, you could be on both sides of this thing. There's just no, we don't have answers for some of this stuff now.
Well, I'll take an example that I'm sure you and I are going to find really silly. It's that
Yeah.
in the past, if an advisor were to take out, let's say, I don't know, the 1992, maybe it's 1992, and so they take out the most recent published book on the latest regulations and IRS rules and all of that, and they sift through and they know how to get to the answer and go through the glossary, figure out how to find the right thing, and get the information and pass it back to the client. Back in 92, would we actually ever say, hey, well, does the advisor deserve credit for it, whether it's commission or whatever else? Because they had to look the answer up, right? They weren't
Right.
actually sifting through their memory. Of course, that sounds so silly. Like, why the heck would they not? I mean, they're looking through a book. That sounds so painful and tedious. But actually, the aggregation of information has been a historical thing that's been happening for decades and decades. Maybe it was a very concise book that was back in the 80s and 90s. Then there was the internet that allowed you to search, and you're still getting
Yeah,
faster
yeah.
at the encyclopedia lookup. It's simply just that we're just in a faster encyclopedic lookup phase, and so nothing has changed for the advisor.
Yeah, and I think that they will come around to regulating it. So that actually is something as you as CEO of a company have to consider too, because as you recall, texting was something everybody did every day, and then all of a sudden
Yep.
one day there were regulations around it, and everyone got $75 million fines. So but it also seemed to me when I saw that coming that common sense could have told you these are client communications, right? You need to regulate it. Do you feel? You got your arms around the common sense stuff that we should be using with AI because at some point it's going to be regulated, right? There has to be, some sort of rules around it.
We took that stance, which was effectively that in absence of clear formal regulation from the regulators, we put our own policy in place, and it's relatively reasonable in terms of here's how we do use AI, here's how data is secure, and how we kind of verify that it's not being trained on the AI models, and here's how we don't do it. So that internal policy, of course, is way stricter than anything that someone else has put up, but we think that that's the right direction. Now, I think. I mean, actually, the key question here with regulation is that the hope actually is that it's actually doing the right things, which is you want to you want to effectively have some level of AI safety involved with the data. You want to make sure that it's
Yeah.
AI is not just directly talking to the client and they just think it's the advisor and it's been vetted. And those are the things you want to really catch for, and I think we'll get there.
Most you talk to most advisors, and you talk to advisors all the time, and they want regulation. You want to have rules, so you know what to do, and so that you're CYA on the other side, and that the client's protected and you're protected. I don't think advisors worry about rules, but they should worry about things being a little too open-ended because things always tend to catch up to you.
Yes, 100%.
So, how are you guys increasing profitability? I know that you don't want to add. I guess when I take away from our conversations is the whole savvy models. You're not adding to the operational burden, right? That an advisor has. You're taking it off their shoulders, right? You're actually allowing. You said $1 billion advisor solo. You're doing the best you can to have people be able to sort of access your tech, right? And then do the same. So how are you finding that challenge?
So that's spot on, right? Where we basically think about this as for the advisor, they shouldn't have to think about any of this middle and back office stuff. So they can think of it as just outsource it to Savvy. Now, at the same time, for us, the way that we do it is instead of just hiring a ton more people, that's basically going to get mired more in operational burden and delays and processing things that you typically expect. We've effectively said, well, which of these processes as an advisor is the highest pain point, does not have a good solution, maybe require it is something that AI or just general software workflows can actually help solve. And so we've just been chipping away at that. You
Yeah, yeah.
prioritize that list and just build at it. And our view is that if you just keep doing this over and over again, you'll build the best platform that allows the advisor to truly actually focus on the clients, and they have this autonomous system that's effectively working for them, whether it's AI or software workflows that just speed everything up. That's behind the scenes.
So what have you found, or maybe what's been surprising to you or not surprising, that a $200 million advisor doing $1.5 million comes to you guys? What have they found to be most, exciting, unusual, or, the surprisingly helpful part of what Savvy does?
Yeah, so I think a few things. What the first is, usually if they're coming from another captive institution, and
Well,
the
let's say
first
it's
thing they
they're
know.
coming from a wirehouse kind of thing, or
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So the first thing they find is that, well, the quote unquote independence is actually true here. And what they mean by that is that whenever they hear independence from another platform, they basically think, well, okay, there's still going to be some gotchas. There's still going to be rules of, well, I can't really go beyond, these five models, or maybe a little bit of deviance from it, but it's still going to be tricky. And they're happy to find, like, no, truly it is you can customize to your end's desire, up until, compliance and regulation will allow us to. And again, it's possible because, well, if you are in another firm, it's really hard to allow for so much customization if you just have to have people doing everything. And so that this is where, that's the first thing that they get. And I think that's a huge value prop for these $200 million teams making 100, million and a half. Maybe it's two people, and that's good money. And they're really looking for that next level of independence. So that is a really big one. Um, I'd say that maybe the second one that's super interesting as well is they effectively get a team without having to think about it, right? So I think about a wirehouse, right? Of course, you have everything taken care for you. I mean, maybe it's behind a black box. So you call a number and suddenly everything is done, and you're paying for it in spades in other ways. But the fear is always, and we see this in the process when they're evaluating us or someone else, it's the fear is, well, how do I get X done? Or what if the ball gets dropped here? And we're really mapping that out of all the
yeah.
things they used to rely on versus how we can do it. So it's not a surprise as much as it is a relief that, there is a solution for how do I actually get the custodian to, negotiate a cheaper line of credit for this client that wants to move over. It's like, nope, we have that process down. We even have people. It's not everything doesn't need to be software, and we can actually go and help and handle that for you. And so the advisors are pleasantly surprised. It's like, I don't have to jump on a call. I don't have to do this myself. It's like, nope,
Yeah,
we
yeah.
got that taken care of.
Well, I'll tell you what has surprised me most. So, and having spoken with you and also some advisors over at Savvy, because it sounds very tech forward, but I've been surprised by the feeling of culture that the guys have. Yeah, it's a tech forward firm, all that, but they all feel like they're part of the firm. I mean,
Mhm.
they're proud to be with Savvy. I think that's great. It's a
It's
nice part.
last year, middle of last year, I think a number of advisors came to me and said, Ritik, why didn't you advertise this as part of the recruiting process? And this notion of culture and how there's a community. And I just felt a little silly. I said, listen, if we told you that, wouldn't that seem a little silly in the evaluation process when you're evaluating, the complexity of the investment systems and all of these things? And suddenly we're
No.
talking about culture. But they just said, listen, that is such an important part because
Yeah.
I think the quote I remember is someone said, I thought independence would be lonely, but I found my people here at Savvy. And I said, this is such an important part. You don't want to be just a lone wolf out, in the ether, not knowing what you're doing is correct or not. And I think we're really proud of that. We're investing a ton more into just community building and making sure that people can organically just share the bonds with
Yeah.
other advisors, learn from others. A lot of that, I think, is a really special thing we have.
Yeah, so we basically buried the lead there. We would call that in publishing. That was it. That was the front end part of the story. I think that's a great part of it. Hey, look, we're believe it or not, we're 20 minutes or so in, and uh, I guess my last thought, I'm just looking at what I was saying, what else I wanted to ask you, but my last question would be, just the obvious one, how is AI and what do you where you guys are and how you see the market, how's that going to reshape the market, RIA marketplace in particular over the next, and look out, give me a look 5 years from now, like what are you seeing?
So I think in 5 years, you effectively have AI working in the background autonomously. So it won't be something that's so obvious of just I have to
Yeah.
click something, ask it something. That's number one. Number two, it's going to give leverage to all financial advisors and staff that that effectively are doing things to speed up those decision making processes, right? So you can actually scale faster and
Yeah.
get there without having to think about how to all the other operational burdens. So that's number two. And I think number three is that it actually will become a reasoning partner in subspecialties for the advisor. So this is the whole thing that we didn't get a chance to talk about this, but the advisor has so many hats they're supposed to wear. Everything they're basically anything money related. They need to be the expert on call. And it's hard. It's really hard for someone to be able to swivel in a dime's notice for any client. So having the thought partner where you can have your tax specialist agent or your insurance risk analysis agent that can actually go and help you do that, I think will be a huge help in terms of being that 360-degree advisor that all clients are now expecting.
Yeah.
So that's the future. I mean, we hope that we're building towards that, and you having this autonomous operating system that is supporting you as the advisor in building the business you want.
And I think that in terms of agency and all those different pieces that can move around agency, I think you're going to be well served if you have a firm that understands that, because I think advisors not going to want agency from the consensus, whatever. They're going to want some sort of specific, hey, somebody's vetted this. There's some, vetted answers there, I think.
Exactly. We see time and time again, advisors don't want to be technology procurement specialists. And in
Right.
the age of AI, they also don't want to be, call it AI systems integrators. It's just a job that doesn't make them happy. And so we're more than happy to take that on and be that person for them.
That's great. All right, we're going to leave it at that. Thanks, Ritik. Appreciate your time today, and I think you explained a lot about tech and what's going on with advisors. So that's great. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. This is great.